Hello, greetings to you. This is Dr. Babs, your wellness strategist here for a Lifestyle Medicine Week. We are going to be talking about sleep. I'm excited to just discuss this topic because, as you all know, we all skip out on sleep and it's so important, so relevant for us. I hope you're all doing well. So come right in. Let's talk about how we can prioritize sleep. We have quite a bit to cover today. So I would love for you to just share with others so that they can all learn and just be healthier together because that's the whole goal. So give me a few minutes. I'll be right back. Get your pen and paper and we'll get started. Yes. All right, well, welcome back. So we're going to get to it. Let's get started. The topics that we're going to cover, we're going to find out why sleep is so important to our overall well-being. We're also going to dive into how we can prioritize sleep and how we can make it stick. All right, so let's start off with the importance of sleep. Now, sleep is complex. Everybody sleeps, except human beings. We are the ones that like to experiment on how long it will take us to fall asleep. Some people say, I only sleep when I'm tired. Some people tell you, oh, I'll sleep when you're dead. There's no rest for the wicked, all sorts of things. But sleep is so important because it's there for restoration and for renewal. It's a key pillar of good health. So we cannot skip out on sleep. It is so important. Everybody sleeps. Mammals sleep, animals sleep, and there's a reason why, because of restoration as well as renewal. So we need to understand the benefits. So some of the benefits, again, very important, consolidate our memory. Imagine you're just washing plates and you put it in the sink and you just let it pile up and you don't clear the sink. That is exactly what happens. We form plaques in the brain and we do not clear it when we're not sleeping. So sleep deprivation is so rampant. We need to emphasize the importance of sleep because we consolidate our memory when we sleep. We also learn to make logical decisions. We clean up our brains, like I said. We balance growth hormones and, all the necessary hormones. We're able to balance it. So growth hormone is one, a hunger hormone. I know whenever I'm not well rested, I am making poor food decisions because we have the hormone that we call ghrelin. That's the hunger hormone. It's just it's out of balance. So it's high level. And then the leptin, which is the one that makes you feel full. It's just nowhere to be seen. So we need to be able to sleep so that we can balance those hormones. Again, strengthening our immune system. That is so important. A lot of activities occur when we sleep to help strengthen our immune system. So tons of benefits. So let's talk about how we can prioritize our sleep. I think it's important to understand why we sleep. And I think you got that, you kind of got that from what I mentioned, the benefits, right? So we need to know that when we don't sleep, we have reduced memory. And that I see quite a bit. When I have patients come to the clinic and say, I can't find my keys. I go into the building. Now, a lot of us do that. We're overwhelmed with different activities. But if we're not well rested, if we're not getting the minimum required amount of rest, which for adults, and I'll share more about the time, it's really about 7 to 9 hours, then we're not getting into the different stages of sleep, which will help with our memory restoration. So that definitely is affected. Short term, you can't remember and you're wondering why you can't remember, right? Our attention, our mood, has that ever happened to you when you're not well rested? You're just cranky. You're just not feeling good. You're just cranky at everyone. Not only are you hungry and making poor food decisions, but you're just you're just cranky. Another thing, unfortunately, increased motor vehicle accident. Did you know that when somebody is sleep deprived, so that's anything less than 7 hours, and there is a range. So anyone less than 5 is considered severe insomnia. It's likened to a person that has been intoxicated by alcohol. Yes, that's exactly right. There's been studies that have shown when you're sleep deprived, that when they actually, do a test, it's just as bad as, having drunk alcohol. So important. Decreasing accidents whenever you don't sleep. I know that happened to me. I almost died on the highway because I was sleep deprived, until I had to learn that I needed to prioritize sleep. Pain sensitivity is real. So I don't know if that has ever happened to you. So let's say you have a joint ache or you had an injury, you're feeling it more because your nerves, your nerves are actually hyper vigilant when you don't sleep. Everything is just not balanced properly. And then injuries. So let's say you whatever work you do, or if you're an athlete, you're just prone to injuries because you're not balanced appropriately. So it's so important that we pay attention to the short-term injuries that occur in the presence of sleep deprivation. Now, there are long-term. So some people might say, you know what, that doesn't happen to me. I'm fine. I can do well with 5 hours. Again, remember, 7 hours to 9 for adults is the minimum. So anyone that goes from 6 to 7 is considered mild insomnia. When you go from 5 to 6, then it's considered moderate, and less than 5 is considered severe. And what do I mean by insomnia? Insomnia just means you're not sleeping, and this is continuous. And so it's not like a one night, a month, you have, some family issues, you're not sleeping, that happens, or you have a newborn and you're caring for a loved one, that happens. There are occasions where that happens. But when consistently you're just not sleeping over a 3-month period, it's advanced, where you're just getting less than the required number of hours. So that will be considered insomnia. So for long-term insomnia, things that can happen because you just don't have the proper balance. You can increase your stress hormone, and stress hormone, cortisol, over a long period of time damages vessels, causes it to be hyper, So again, the fight or flight is really supposed to get you to jump and go. But if that stays high, then you can imagine that would damage vessels. Another thing, as I mentioned, the hormone is imbalanced. So you just have the tendency to eat more, which will increase fat accumulation over time, can increase diabetes because the insulin is it's so confused. It doesn't know what to do. So a lot of chronic diseases, so obesity, heart attacks, strokes, diabetes, arthritis, depression. Depression is one of them. So they are long-term effects, and I felt them. And that was why I had to prioritize sleep. I had to say, okay, yes, I know the world is constantly busy, but there's a reason why God said we need to allocate time for sleep. So now that we get the sense of the short-term, problems that occur and the long-term problems, let's get to the basis of sleep. You're like, okay, yeah, I've heard it. So, how do I know how much sleep I need, and how do I regulate it? So let me tell you, basics of sleep, because I had to understand it too. There are 2 main processes that occur for sleep to take place. And if you understand that, then you can, have a better handle on it. So one process is what we call the sleep drive, okay? So it's like, when you're hungry and you don't eat, your tummy begins to growl and it continues to increase and increase. That's the same thing with what we call the sleep drive and the sleep pressure. And it's produced by adenosine in the brain. So it just builds up as the day goes by. So, you wake up, you're fine, and then it continues. And as the day goes by, it has built up so high that you want to sleep, just like hunger, right? You eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The second process, which you probably heard of, is what we call our sleep rhythm. So our sleep rhythm is, it's the biological clock. They call it the circadian rhythm in the brain. So we have 2 main hormones. We have cortisol, which wakes us up, right? So somewhere around 6 a.m., it's at this peak, wakes us up, we get going. And then it shuts off the melatonin, which is the sleep hormone. So when we wake up, we have the cortisol high, and then the melatonin shuts down. But once we wake up, and that's why you would see part of the things that will make it stick is getting sunlight first thing in the morning, because it regulates your clock and it tells the melatonin when it should come back on again. So those are the two processes I want you to understand. And if you understand that, you would understand the next aspect I'm going to talk about. Now, I'm sure you're curious, how many hours? What's the recommendation? I've heard different things. So it's been shown scientifically that the health benefits of sleep is if you sleep between 7 to 9. Now, majority of people don't sleep 9. So if you can at least have quality sleep, important is quality, consistency, and quantity. If you can have that, then you benefit from all the health benefits. Again, start where you are, just make progress day by day. Older patients, 65 and above, we say somewhere between 7 to 8. I'm sure you're wondering, what's about my teenagers? I know I struggle with my teenagers. There's so much homework, there's so much activities, extracurricular activities. The recommendation for them really is between 8 and 10. My girls try to at least get to 8, at least so that they can perform better in school. And then school age, the way I remember it with my son, 10 years old, so 10, so pay attention to those age, the range and where you get those health benefits. Okay, so very important. So now we're going to talk about, how can I improve on my sleep? I know I'm not sleeping well. I know when I was struggling with, and this was really because I was prioritizing everything else. I felt, the house is very quiet at night. I can get more work done. So I wouldn't sleep till about 2 a.m. and then I have to wake up at 6. That was barely 4 hours. And my health was going down the drain. I was having chronic fatigue. I couldn't, that was like self-care for me, which I was depriving myself of. So I had to figure out better ways. So some of the activities that would definitely help you. You remember I said sunlight. So if you can just get that sunlight the moment you wake up, okay? The moment you wake up, it really helps to set your circadian rhythm. It puts you in a good mood. It makes you alert. A lot of us, I don't drink caffeine, but I know a lot of people, the first thing they do is want to drink caffeine. Caffeine, remember I talked about the pressure. Caffeine decreases your sleep pressure. So you have to be careful. If you do drink it, please drink water first and then your caffeine, because we wake up dehydrated. So because there's a lot of processes from everything I said that takes place. Drink water first. I have my water by my bedside so I don't have to think about it. Drink water, and then if you have to have your caffeine, fine, but don't drink your caffeine past somewhere between 12 and 2, because you don't want it blocking your adenosine, which is what builds up to make you sleep in the evening. All right, so sunlight to help give you that mood regulator with the dopamine, helps to get the circadian rhythm all set. Movement is very good. Move that keep you, they say the more tired you are, the more likely that you would sleep. So if you can get movement in, foods and drinks, I mentioned caffeine, it's very important. Alcohol, we have to be very careful with alcohol because alcohol stays in quite a bit and it can affect the different stages of sleep. They are, for the sake of time, they're just about 4 stages. We have the REM sleep, which is where we have all the mental clarity that takes place, restoration, and then we have the physical changes that takes place in the first 3 stages. So we have to benefit from each of those stages. And if we're drinking alcohol, it's going to affect the stages. So you wouldn't have the quality sleep that I referred to. So let's talk about nighttime. So what's about night? What can I do to make me sleep better at night? Now, this is the tricky one, because all of us like to be on our phones, scrolling through Facebook, social media. But guess what it does? The blue light blocks our melatonin. Remember the melatonin? Once it gets dark, the biological clock says, okay, cortisol is going down. The melatonin, which is the sleep hormone, is rising, but it gets blocked by blue light. The blue light is what comes from the TV. It's what comes from our phone. So yeah, some people might have the blue light blocking. And so it's about 7:16 now. I typically start winding down at 9 to hit bed at 10. So anywhere an hour, they say before bedtime, try 1 hour to 2, but I try an hour. Get those lights dim so that you're not blocking your melatonin. If you have to have, the blocking lights or the glasses, whatever it is you need, turn off your electronics and begin that nighttime routine. It really helps. So if you have to take tea to soothe you, if you have to journal, that would get your mind into a calm state. I mean, a lot of us have those Our mind keeps racing. I am guilty. I know this from experience. So, but we need to do things to calm ourselves. So I usually will take like lavender tea like an hour before. And again, depending on if you don't want to be getting up to the bathroom and that would disturb your sleep. So I do massage lavender oil to calm me down. Whenever I use it, I promise you, I sleep through the night like a baby because we all want to calm down. Don't watch any news, anything that will just stimulate you. Avoid that. So blue light technology, again, foods. A lot of people eat late at night. I used to do that and I stopped. So whenever you stop eating, which is somewhere between 7 and 8, if your bedtime, you really should stop eating. Average, they say 2 to 3 hours before bedtime, because if you just go with a full tummy, there's a lot of things that happen when you go to bed with a full tummy. Not only are you remember I said that the growth hormone activates and helps us repair and grow and metabolize all the fat. It doesn't kick in if you eat and go to bed, because what is activated is insulin, and insulin and growth hormone cannot be in the same body at the same time. So there's all these tricks that you need to be aware of. If you have to have something light, but just not something that's going to, require your insulin. So it takes progress little by little. You improve your sleep, because that's the goal. We all want to improve our sleep. We all want to live quality, healthy lives, right? So foods and drinks, again, I talked about the caffeine and I talked about the alcohol. Stay away from those. You can do light movement. Any heavy movement will definitely get you all riled up. So stretching is definitely good. So stretching helps. All right, so let's summarize all that we've talked about. I want you to understand one thing, that sufficient sleep is not a luxury. A lot of people say that, I will sleep when I'm dead. There's no time for sleep. Yes, I see it all the time. It affects our immune system. Unfortunately, my father was sleep deprived for many years, and it just really didn't help his immune system. And so we need to know that it's a necessity, and it's just a vital sign for good health. So the question then will be, what are you going to do today? How are you going to improve on your sleep? I want you to pay attention to your daytime and your nighttime activities. Make a conscious effort. Again, remember, 7 to 9 hours range is the time really that you get all the benefits, and you want to make it the same time. So for me, I aim to get in bed at 10. I start winding down by 9. I drink my tea, lavender tea. I do my hygienic stuff. I do my journaling, just anything to calm and soothe me down. I take the lavender oil, massage. So just pay attention to those nighttime activities, and know that when you wake up, you're setting yourself by the activities you do for your nighttime. All right, so call to action. Thank you if you're all still listening. I appreciate your engagement and just participating. I want you to commit to yourself that if your sleep is just not the best, some people sleep well and that's good. But if it isn't, with everything that you've heard today, what are you going to do? Because we want you to be whole, we want you to be vibrant, and we want you to be healthy, because you deserve it and you certainly are worth it. So share with me in the comments. I would love to hear from you. Let's see if anyone left a comment, if there's any. Okay, so none at the moment. Well, if there are any questions, please feel free to leave them, and I will definitely circle back and respond. But again, thank you so much for listening and watching, and I wish you the finest sleep. Take care.